Welcome to Raconteurs News. And welcome to Raconteurs News. It is the 15th of January 2018. 2018, we're already there in January and we're halfway through the month as well, so it's the 15th. Time doesn't half fly. I don't believe in all the nonsense that suggests that time seems to fly when you're older, because when you're my age, 47, a year is 1/47th of your life, and therefore, when you're 10, a year seems like 1/10 of your life. So I don't believe that. I think that's complete and utter nonsense. So, how you doing? Welcome to Raconteurs News this Monday night. My name's Jason Holmes, and we are broadcasting on Spreaker.com. Do a search for us, Raconteurs News, on Spreaker.com, and on RaconteursNews.com as well. Well, God, what a weekend. I've had a lovely weekend. I've not had any interaction with any of the news that's been going on. I did wake up this morning to this Carillion thing that is going on, and if you really just look at that, that's just a realisation that was just private taxpayer money being put into private hands. That's all the Carillion thing was. It was a huge scam. Private money has got, public money, taxpayers' money, money that belongs to us, the people, has been transferred into the hands of private individuals, and it's an absolute fucking disgrace. Sorry for my language. So anyway, listen, what I want to do is I want to keep away from all that crap, because it's just utter nonsense. We've got the Trump stuff going on as well. What did he do? It's supposedly racist. There's all this racist nonsense going on. But what I want to do is I want to take us away from all that, because I've got a great guest tonight. I had a good chat with him a couple of nights ago, and I thought this is going to be a great chat. We wanted to if you remember, when I was speaking to Andrew Johnson, I was speaking about the early days of the 9/11 Truth Movement and things that have sort of slipped through people's fingers. There were some great nuggets and bits of evidence that were there that seem to have slipped through people's fingers. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to try and revisit that. So in the hope of doing that, I've invited on the show tonight a guest. He's a good friend of Andy's. I know Andy knows him very, very well. It's Mark Conlon. How you doing, Mark?
I'm all right, thank you. Pleased to be with you.
Excellent. I think we can hear you. Can hear you. So if anybody in chat room can just sort of give us some sort of idea, that make sure that we're doing okay. We're doing okay with the sound levels. I don't want to blast people's ear off. So how are you? What's
I'm not too bad. Just moved back into the office after some bit of renovation, decorating. So it's good to be back in this new decorated office and to be with you, actually, just in time, 10 minutes before.
excellent? And that sounds to me like a Midlands accent.
Yeah,
So
from
give
Birmingham.
some sort of clue, because we do have a lot of people from the Midlands. I know he doesn't live there anymore, but Andrew K. Fletcher is from the Midlands. He's a yam. He's from West Bromwich. Which part are you from?
I'm in the Northfield area of Birmingham. It's central Birmingham, central England in the Midlands. Yeah,
right slap bang in the centre.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got the accent right anyway. And we got some good stuff happening in Birmingham. We got Truth Juice, Birmingham. Yeah.
Do you go to any of these, Mark?
Yeah, I do go on and off when I get, when I'm available, really. So sometimes land and clash, and you just can't get up there, and you'd like to. So I don't go as often as I'd like, really. But when certain speakers are on, I'd always try and make an effort or get there to see what they've got to talk about.
Super Leeds in the chat room has put some bloody Brummies he's put in there. He's a Yorkshireman. He's from Leeds, and he's not going to be very pleased tomorrow because we've got another Lancastrian, someone from Lancashire coming on tomorrow night. So he's probably going to be a little bit angered at that. But I'm sure he'll. Do you know the one thing about the weird thing about me is. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but when I hear women with Brummie accents, that's my trigger. It really is.
Right. And do you want to go into that trigger?
No, I'm not. I'm not that bothered at the moment. I think it first happened when I was watching Jeremy Kyle, and there was this woman in this sort of dress, and she was talking in this really strong Brummie accent, and I just thought, God, it was just the sound of her voice. I don't think it was actually what she looked like, because we are talking Jeremy Kyle.
Right.
Yes. So we spoke last week, and we thought it would be interesting to have a conversation about the early days of the 9/11 Truth movement and the days back. Well, back in the day, as it were. So why don't you give us an introduction as to how you became first involved in the 9/11 Truth movement, as for want of a better word, because I know that we both don't like that sort of phrase. How did you first? When were you first alerted to the fact that there was something wrong, and how did that manifest itself, and when was that?
Well, it would have been around 2004, and I wasn't any part of any truth movement. I've never really been part of that. I've just mainly followed and looked at things that was being put on the internet. But I think it was around 2004, 5. I used to listen to a show called Black Op Radio with Leno Sanic, and he had a couple of people on, over the course of time. I think one was Tom Floco, and I think it might have been Victor Thorne, Dave Von Kleist. So I became suspicious. Must have been around 2004, 2005, really. And then, but it sort of, raised my interest in it, really, even more. So I've got to admit, I bought it hook, line and sinker, to be honest, when it happened. I think I was a bit overpowered with the images of it all, really.
And you mentioned Dave Von Kleist there. Dave Von Kleist was quite early in the into making he made the film In Plain Sight, 9/11 In Plain Sight. I think that was pretty much a very, very early one. So I think he was quite important, but I do know that even back in those early days, there was quite a bit of friction between different people, different factions that were making these films. Yeah,
there was. He was. Well, he became quite conflicted, didn't he, with other groups as well. I think I've seen him with when Fetzer put on his conference, and I think there's quite a bit of conflict going on because he was supportive of the planes, and there was other people, the other group, the No Planes, and TV fakery. So I think he was quite not controversial, but he was quite challenging, I think.
You see, in the early days, this is what I remember about the early days: the planes and the the plane theories. It was pretty much right at the very early point. There was never any talk of no planes, and it was September Clues, Killtown, all these people that came up with this no plane theory. Now, if I remember rightly, in the early days, you had two different factions. You had the LIHOP people and the MIHOP people. Now, just to explain that to anybody that doesn't know, LIHOP means let it happen on purpose. So there were people that were claiming that the government had let this happen. And then there were people who, at MIHOP, was make it happen on purpose, so that they felt that there were people in the shadow government that were actively involved in making this happen. So I think that was probably the first division within the truth movement. I don't know what you think about that, or whether you can remember any earlier ones.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Going back quite early on regarding the planes was Jerry Messon. He put his book out and he had the website, didn't he, Hunt the Boeing at the Pentagon. So I do remember that, and I think there was a Channel 4 program made about him in the October or September 2002. So that was my first hearing of it. No planes, but that was just at the Pentagon site. But as you were saying there, I sort of remember that they let it happen, and the other group
make it happen on purpose.
Make it happen, and then it got quite political, didn't it? Because I remember the remote control planes and all that. That was another one. I remember that coming through quite early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in. It was highlighted in Loose Change, wasn't it? That there had been takeoffs and landings done remotely. On the same sorts of vehicles. That was, I remember. I do remember that. I mean, when we're going back, it is quite interesting. Some of the things that we nowadays completely discard and don't even talk about or think about. But yet, back in those days, these were bits of evidence that were coming forward. But it seems now we've been so overrun with different attacks and different conspiracies and different false flag events. I think we can safely say 9/11 was a false flag event. No matter what you think about it, it was a false flag event up to a certain point. Whether you believe that somebody was made it happen on purpose or let it happen on purpose, there was still an element of it, an inside job.
Yeah, without a doubt. When I heard, I think it was Tom Floco on Black Op Radio, he was apparent there. That's what made me go and have a look, and you couldn't really reach any other conclusion, really. It was just so quite blatant. But at that point, looking back now, there's some elements where I felt that I was being controlled as in what information was out there. Yeah,
there was a lot of that.
With hindsight again, isn't it?
Before, I was involved with Loose Change quite heavily, to a point where I did a little bit of research and was involved with that. But I was involved with Loose Change, and I became suspicious, particularly when we had when Loose Change built a forum, and there were thousands of people on this forum, thousands and thousands of people. Of course, you ended up with the ones that were telling you that you were, lunatics and talking out your arse, and these trolls and these people that were attempting to debunk some of these things. And let's face it, some of the things that were coming out were easily debunked. Some of the some of the ideas that people have were easily debunked, and I think that added to it as well.
Yeah,
but
I think there was a lot of.
What made me suspicious is that they'd closed down the forums, and then that would instantly dilute it by at least half, if not down to a quarter of what it was previously, and it kept happening and going along, so I while we moan about Facebook and things like that, and we rightly do as well, because the algorithms have been designed so that none of the information that's any good to anybody is going to get out to anybody that's going to be new to it. The same thing was happening back then, but on a more human level. And it's my understanding now that the Loose Change boys weren't exactly on the level, and there was a huge thing with Mark Cuban as well. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, was he going to narrate it, or was he investing some money?
He was going to invest. He's a billionaire owner of. I think he owns a basketball club or a team or something like that. But yeah, he'd offered to put the money forward, or at least that was reported. And Charlie Sheen was going to be the narrator. Now, since the revelations about and what's come out since about Charlie Sheen since, I think that's probably a good thing that it didn't happen, because that would have just put a whole dampener on everything.
Well, he could have been quite attached to that, couldn't he? And maybe, like you say, put the dampener on it. But I remember around that time with the Loose Change, because that was like, they classed it as an internet blockbuster, didn't they? Really, and that was like that sort of overtook in plain sight when that really took off. And I remember there's, you print your T-shirts off everything, and print the DVDs, hand them out, and so it was quite a movement. That wasn't it? The Loose Change movement, really.
Yeah,
and from your experience of diluting that forum down, which I think you alluded to before, where they kept moving the forum, and each time it was getting diluted down to, till it become nothing. Similarly to the film as it went on from the first one, the second, and the third, it seemed to took on quite a big change. I felt it lost its message, really.
Yeah, Loose Change second edition is the one that I was involved with, which I think is the best. I mean, the Loose Change final cut was a complete waste of time, and like you say, it just seemed to they seemed to lose key bits of evidence that were tangible bits of evidence. And I understand that people will say, when we're talking about things like the pod, people will say, but. Will say, that's been debunked. But that was something that you could see. It was something tangible. It was something that you could look at. And no matter what anybody told you, you could see that, and it wasn't something that was in your imagination. But all those things seem to sort of like be debunked, and then it wasn't so much the debunking of like the James Randi forum, because that was like I said to Andrew Johnson, the James Randi forum, if you remember that, the JREF forum, that was set up in August of 2001. Now, to me, that seems to me as if that was set up in order to answer the questions that were inevitably going to come up, because they've got such a big operation going on. And of course they were all, but I also think that a lot of the conflict that went on between the James Randi forum and all the idiots that were on there, and the sort of Loose Change and the truthers, because there were a lot of idiots that would make wild claims, and I think it sort of offset each other, and I don't think anybody did. I don't think that did any good to anybody seeking truth.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of what I felt was muddling up. And that I'm of the opinion now, looking back in hindsight and going back and really looking into it, that I think that was maybe done deliberately. That might be quite controversial for some people, but to me, there is evidence that happened deliberately. And who's tied to the James Randi is William Rodriguez.
Yes, yeah, William Rodriguez. Well, I've had bloody hell. I've had dealings with before. I know William Rodriguez quite well. I've spoken to him on a few occasions, and I will state here there was one time that William Rodriguez phoned me up and asked me to lie about something. Now,
really, that's very interesting.
He asked me to lie about something and asked me to say something had happened that hadn't happened, although it never transpired that it happened. That I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I do. I've spoke with Andrew. Well, Andrew spoke with me about William Rodriguez, and I met him in 2007 when he done his July talk with Annie Mashon. Again, I was. Pardon?
Was that in Liverpool?
No, it was in Wolverhampton. He done that one of them, the one I went to anyway.
Okay.
And he had his key, his master key that he was having lots of photos done with. I had a photograph took with him, but he something didn't ring true for me. He was a very, very polished character, and his story was amazing, overly amazing, but he just seemed a very polished character, really. Which when I heard some of what Andrew had told me and put in his, I think it's in his book maybe, that really made me doubt William Rodriguez, especially being connected to this James Randi.
Yeah.
Character.
Wasn't he his assistant? James Randi was a magician.
Yeah.
And William Rodriguez at one point was his assistant, which in itself it is nothing, but it does make you think, doesn't it? That nothing is coincidental. We don't believe in coincidences here at Raconteurs.
No. Well, Andrew can tell you a story about William Rodriguez when they went to the BBC studios, and I can't remember it exactly, and Andrew will probably tell you better himself, but that was enough, I think, to convince him about William Rodriguez, and how genuine he was, really.
Yeah.
And when you first hear these things, you can go into a state of denial yourself when you've met these people and you've really bought into the story and it's all for truth. And that was quite a difficult stage to go through for myself, really. The realisation that some of these people are not genuine, and they apparently seem like they're being put there, to lead you somewhere else, maybe.
It is difficult as well, isn't it, to sort out, especially in those early days when when you're completely new to this. This is something that's turned your life upside down. You're completely new to it. You are thirsty for it. And I remember my mate Adu used to do Raconteurs too on a Monday night, the show that I'm doing now, but we've just turned it back to Raconteurs News. I woke him up, and it took me months. It must have took me 2 years before I woke him up. And when I finally rattled his cage and got him going, he went through he probably learned the same amount of information in 6 months as I had done in my first 6 years. Because I'd had it spoon fed to me. I had to decide what was the good stuff, what was the crap, and so. And sometimes it's difficult, especially when perhaps you see something and you think it's good, and then later you learn it's crap, and you've got to then say to yourself, "I've got to discard this." It's something I need to do. But what people tend to do is they get married to these different theories and these different stories, and even when they prove wrong, they can't get away from them, can they?
No, absolutely, yeah. And I've seen that a lot, especially the research I was doing. I've seen where people just cannot let go of a theory or whatever. It's almost like they go into active denial and they'll do everything to defend it, and they'll carry on pushing some wrong information. Really, I'm not saying everybody's a disinformationist. I think some people are probably unknowingly misled, a bit like myself in the early days. Like I say, hindsight, looking back, you can see areas where I think there's a lot of deliberate stuff happening, really, to lead you away from finding the truth.
So, in those sorry about that. In those early days, how active were you? You know when you first found out what effect did it have on your life?
Oh, well, I think it became quite a. I think what it firstly does is once you find out that information, you want to pass it on, so you can become quite pushy to get that information pushed on to people. And I think when people reject it, I think you go through quite a lonely experience where everybody else seems to be on a different page, and you're on, your own page, your own journey. And I think it's quite a lonely journey, back in the day. But it just made me really look into things. But I would class myself more than, I was more of a follower than a researcher at that time. So I would have been following certain, like In Plain Sight film, Loose Change, 9/11 Mysteries. I'd have been listening to Jim Fetzer's show and things like that. So, I'd class myself as a follower and probably a repeater of bad information, unknowingly doing it.
I think we're all like that, though,
now,
aren't we? When you're all like that, it's like when you've just suddenly discovered that the world just isn't what you'd previously, the previous fairy tale that you'd been following, and then you realise and you think, oh my God, I can't believe I've been so blind all my life. And then you you're looking for every bit of information that you can get, and you're trying to process it at the same time, and it all gets clogged up. And I completely understand that. And of course, in the early days, you are a follower because you don't know anything, do you? And you're looking for answers, and you're looking to other people. Naturally, you're looking to other people for answers. So
I mean, I was quite lucky, really, because I was in a job where I was in autopilot, and I could stick my headphones on and just listen to podcasts and things like that, interviews with people, and I would have, really absorbed the information that way, really. So I was doing sort of my research or listening, to information at work, 40 hours a week, and more when you're, of a weekend. So, you become not an anorak at it, but you come really immerse yourself into it, and you just got this thirst for knowledge, and you just want the truth, Yeah,
I think for me at that time I just started a job in a nightclub in Mansfield, so I was DJing on a weekend. So Friday and Saturday night I was DJing, coming home. I think we were finishing at 3, so I'd get home at 4, and I'd be up till 6, 7 o'clock. Watching videos, and I think I watched In Plain Sight. When I first saw it, I think I must have watched it a good 10 times every night. Once a night for 10 nights. When I got in from work, I'd just be watching it constantly. So it just makes you. It turns you into this sort of anorak, and you do turn off from other parts of your life as well. That's another interesting point. Is other parts of your life, you might have a partner or somebody who just doesn't see it, and you're like, oh my God, and it does have an effect on that part of your life as well. So I think it's important to create some balance in your life. How did you manage to do that?
Again, luckily there was a guy I worked with at work. We was in quite close proximity, and he became interested in it as well, and we could talk about it, and I think other people at work, as the time went on, they got more into the not mainstream, but it got more into the public, didn't it? The doubt. So I think they might come to us and have a chat about it. So it started to open up. So it wasn't so lonely when you was at work. Just yourself listening to it. You'd have other people come up who had an interest, so it sort of like spread a little bit. Plus, you was able to hand the odd DVD out at work for anybody who wanted it, and that would get, whet their appetite with it, really. So, and then it would lead on to other things. Do you think this is a conspiracy? Or, we had 7/7 when that happened, so it became not as lonely. So, I was quite lucky like that. But you do have a lot of arguments with people. That certainly went up, it challenged quite a few people's belief systems, really.
And people generally tend to be sort of blasé about it as well.
Yeah,
It's almost as if they know that there's something wrong, but they don't really want to know, if you know what I mean. So I remember one night, it must have been about 3-4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm on my way home and I call in for some petrol. And I've got some loose change DVDs in me pocket. Because at that time, listen, anybody who's around now, if you were around at that time and you were you went round with DVDs in your pocket, and anybody that showed the slightest interest, you gave them a DVD, even if it just became a coaster for the coffee mug on the desk, whatever. You gave them a DVD, and that was the way that it was. So it wasn't. You weren't sharing on social media and hoping anybody might come across it. You were actually handing people physically DVDs and videos and information. And I remember going in, and I went into this petrol station. It must have been about 4 o'clock in the morning, and there was this old bloke on doing. He's obviously retired and he's doing overnight sort of thing in the service station. And I went in. It was open. And I went in and I struck up a conversation with him and I said, I tell you what, he says, that 9/11, I said 9/11, and this must have been about 2005. I said, 9/11, I says, oh, God almighty, I tell you what, he went off rotten that. I said, government's done that. Government's done that. Yeah. He says, Gil, I said, they have. I said, look, I've got a DVD in my pocket here. Take that home and watch it. And he went, now. I says, well, why not? And he said, I can't see him doing it to their own people. And that was it. That was the end of it.
Yeah.
He couldn't see that them doing it to their own people. This is the what you're up against, because even today, we're talking 12 years later, people still would have the same response that they can't see the government doing that to their own people. But yet we've got so many examples of it.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's where other films come up, didn't it? Like Terror Storm with Alex Jones. He sort of highlighted that fact that they do this to their own people.
Mm.
I think that's sort of some of his films sort of showed that, didn't they? Highlighted some of them areas.
Yeah, Terror Storm's a good. It is a good one to go back to. It's in the days before Alex Jones had turned into this Trump supporting gook, whatever it is. Yeah. I don't even know what he's turned into, but he's gone somewhere sort of semi-mainstream, hasn't he? So he's. But Terror Storm, that's not detracting from his previous work, because Terror Storm is a great. It's a great film. It highlights a lot of things that are geopolitical things that America are involved in.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the films which you can sort of. It's quite a good educational film, as in, it showed you that they do attack themselves. This has happened before, and you can use, something you could tell people. So that was another one of them films that came along. I think it was after Loose Change, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It was 2006 or something.
Yeah, and I think Terror Storm was the part where 9/11 films had sort of stuck on 9/11. And the individual evidence and stuff like that. Terror Storm was the one where it started to expand, and you started to see a bigger picture emerging of. And I know that Loose Change and In Plain Sight gave you some sort of idea, like Operation Northwoods is the project for a new American century that was. September 2000, I think, where they said that they wanted to invade all these, or they wanted, it was a new strategy for America in the next century, and they wanted to take over these countries. But what they needed, I think the wording is for the public to be on board, or they needed
new catalysing catastrophic events,
catalyse an event like another new,
like
a new Pearl Harbor, and then they got one in September 2001. So all these details, all these, I know they were all in Loose Change and in Plain Sight and things like that. But Terror Storm, I think, started to expand it on it so that it was not just 9/11. It sort of started connecting some dots.
Yeah. I think because Loose Change dealt with like you say, they brought up the put options in that as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that was another area, outside of the actual. And I think they mentioned Operation Northwards, but yeah, like you say, Terror Storm really got onto that geopolitical thing, wasn't it? In the areas like that where I don't know. He spoke about when they attacked the cells in Germany, the Reichstag and all that.
Yeah, the Reichstag building. So, when they dressed up. They dressed up German soldiers in Polish uniforms, dead German soldiers that they'd killed in Polish uniforms. Yeah. And also, what is it, the USS Liberty when Israel attacked that? Yeah. So these are all, and along with Operation Northwards, it's a lot of. You would imagine that would be enough evidence for people to say, well, hang on a minute. These guys clearly are.
Was that think tank as well, wasn't it? The Bush think tank. Which was the PNAC document. There was a lot of people connected to the Bush. I think who helped produce that document. So I think that really sent it in the direction, didn't it? Of Bush did it, type of thing. Although you finger pointing at Cheney. Dick Cheney, like.
I mean, I don't think Bush had anything to do with it. I think Bush probably knew what was going to go on. I think, when you're talking about the neocons that were, who authored the document, the Project for a New American Century. We're talking Jeb Bush, Paul Wolfowitz. God, I'm scraping bottom of my mind here in my memory. Paul Wolfowitz, Jeb Bush. Yeah. Got loads of them, neocons, and they were all of the same ilk. And they decided that they needed some catastrophic or catalysing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And then a year later, when 9/11 happens, George Bush calls it the new Pearl Harbor.
The new Pearl Harbor, yeah, definitely, yeah. And I think that evidence was quite picked up a lot, wasn't it, and used. I think it's in quite a few films, that evidence, as time went on. I mean, I used to recite that myself to people about that document. But as you say, it's like that much in history now. Now, I can't remember some of the names who actually wrote that. Yeah, I used to be able to reel the names off years ago. Yeah. It's almost faded into the background and become, just a part of history, really.
Like I just said, I mean, Paul Wolfowitz, I think I can remember. Jeb Bush, I remember being in it.
Was Richard Pearl in it?
Sorry?
Richard Pearl, was he one of them?
Perlman.
Yeah.
Richard Perlman,
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in there. Yeah, they were all the usual sort of neocon blokes that we.
I mean, I always thought Bush. They probably shuffled him off out the way to that school, so he couldn't put his foot in his mouth or anything. If he had any inkling.
Well, it was reading My Pet Goat, weren't it? And wasn't it upside down? It was supposed to be reading like My Pet Goat, and then even in, if you look at the footage in the school, the kids were doing a demonstration for the president just before, and then they had to say these words that were on the screen. That were on the wall, and one was kite, hit, steal, must. Kite must hit steel. It's just ridiculous. This was just as it was happening, and people will overlook that and they'll go, "Oh yeah," but it's just it's not a coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidences. Do you remember that? It was reading My Pet Goat, wasn't it? And it was upside down.
Yeah. It was upside down. Yeah, and didn't he make some error or blunder or? He said he seen the first plane go in and thought, what a terrible pilot.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah, he did. He said, I think he was talking to some school kids on a stage, or some college kids, and he said, and I was watching it on TV, and I saw the first plane hit, and I thought, my God, that's a terrible pilot. Yet nobody saw that. So, all right, we know.
That's always made me wonder, that statement. Did he see it? Or was it just an error?
I think it was just an error. I really do think it was just an error. I don't think there were any way that he could have seen it, because we saw where he was when the first plane hit, and he was in that school, that classroom.
He was in the classroom, wasn't he? Yeah.
So I think
that's why they would have shuffled him off out the way, and
he may have later seen footage of the first plane hitting. Yeah. Later on, not actually live, but he may have seen it later on, because, well, we got the Norday brothers. They're the only ones that have got the official first plane strike. The Norday brothers, and again, suspicious. I mean, how suspicious are they? The Norday brothers. They were in town doing this expose or this documentary about firefighters, and suddenly the biggest disaster, a man-inflicted disaster happens in peacetime. Sorry, because I must make that point, because Dresden were awful. But the biggest peacetime terrorist attack happens while they're on, and they just happen to be there to video it. And again, the suggestions behind the Norday brothers and the links that they had to the Central Intelligence Agencies.
Yeah, I have heard that, actually, yeah. And there's apparently only one of 6 places that could have had a view of the towers from, in them locations, because other buildings would have obscured their view. I mean, that, I've always been a little bit suspicious of that, and hearing about their connections. But then you have people who say that the actual video's fake and it's had a plane inserted, which that's an area, I have looked into, and I think their video's genuine, but, whether they were placed there, that's, it's a possibility, really.
So what would your best guess be? Because we have this is the problem with it, is with 9/11 is it's dragged into so many different places, and people will argue their toss over whether they were planes or no planes, or whether they were remote control planes, or whether they were holograms, or whether it were just explosions, whether it were controlled demolition, whether it were directed energy weapons. I mean, where are you on this?
Well, regarding the planes, that's been a quite a big area of research. Well, regarding the videos, for me, I got hooked and hoodwinked into some Killtown stuff about video fakery and all that crew. I looking back now, and the research I've done, especially around September clues. I mean, a lot of that is just complete nonsense, and I don't like the word debunked, but I've proved a lot of them points in that film are just, he either has to be doing it deliberately to mislead people, or he's making these mistakes, constantly through his film. And to me, it's more of a deliberate attempt to mislead and promote the no planes, but through video fakery. But regarding no planes, I think if some of the footage, very dubious as in what they've captured in that footage, especially the way the plane goes into the building, and the crash physics of it, and disappearing wings. There's like a wing where it disappears. Now you have to discount all the witnesses with video fakery, or any eyewitnesses who've seen a plane, and there's quite a few witnesses. I've looked into a lot of them. And then you've got the videographers. You've got to discredit all them, and the photographers who captured a plane or panned along with the plane. So they obviously seen something in the sky that looked like a plane. Now, to me, video fakery doesn't answer the other anomalies in the video footage. So I think that footage is real, but the videographers and the photographers captured something rather profound, even though the plane doesn't look like a United Airlines plane in a lot of them videos. There's something else going on that's where I've been at from. I mean, I wrote over 40 articles last year looking into the video fakery and the people connected to that. And a lot of it appears to be either some people are, how can I put this, misguided or unknowingly putting stuff out. But I think there's one or two or three, four people who have deliberately or sent people off or muddled up things for me regarding that. And it's quite comprehensive. It's like a perception management sort of thing, or psyop, whatever you want to call it. And that's where I said, that's when I got involved in the research. Really, is because of that.
Right.
I was really took in by people like Killtown, and some of his stuff, and some of it's just complete
nonsense.
Nonsense, yeah. I was going to say something else.
See,
but,
I had quite a relationship with Killtown. I used to speak to him on a daily basis.
Fascinating. This is.
I, as I stand now, I think I was used. I think I was played.
Wow.
He used me to get a message to David Shayler, which I did. And then a couple of days later, after I'd got a message to David Shayler, I'd driven up to Leeds and got a message to David Shayler. A couple of days later, I told you this before when we were speaking before. Killtown gave me a message to give to him. I can't remember what that message is. I can remember the response. Tell Killtown I'm a no-planer. And then a couple of days later, David Shayler was on Sky News, and they were doing a piece on Alexander Litvinenko, who was the Russian spy, or the Russian guy who'd been poisoned.
That's it, yeah.
And David Shayler turned the whole interview into a no planes at the World Trade Center discussion, and it was quite skillful how he did it, and it was also unusual how the presenter allowed that to happen, and he turned that into a no plane discussion. Now, there's me unwittingly sat there thinking, "Oh my God, I think I've just did this." I've got right. I couldn't remember what I'd been told to tell David Shayler, but I told him what I'd been told to tell him. And then he said, "Tell Killtown I'm in no plane." And then a couple of days later, he's on Sky News, suggesting there were no planes at the World Trade Center. It was incredible. It was just one of the weirdest things that ever went on. And he's just putting.
So what do you draw from that then? So what is there anything that you what do you feel happened?
I think that was the beginning of David Shayler's changing. If you remember, he went from being quite a prominent member of the Truth Movement, and at that time in 2006, to say there were no planes was it was a big thing. You were putting yourself out there, and most people wouldn't even listen to you after that. So I think that it was designed for him to then come out. He was supposed to give it some sort of credence and give it a platform, because what astounded me more than anything was they were talking about, it was an interview, and there was him and somebody else being interviewed by the Sky presenter. I'll see if I can find it out. It's on YouTube. I know it is because I found it out a couple of times. And it seemed to me how the presenter allowed him to go on from, we're talking about a Russian spy that's supposedly been poisoned and who's dying, Alexander Litvinenko, and they've allowed an MI5 spook, as they know he is, because once a spook, always a spook. I don't care what you say. Once a spook, always a spook. They allowed him to get on. And then I'm going to find it when we do the music break.
I think I might have a copy of that. I think I might have downloaded that off YouTube.
I'm going to post it in the chat room.
Yeah.
I know it's in two parts, but it was almost an hour long, and that was the interesting thing, was it was allowed to go into that. So we're talking about no planes at the World Trade Center, and also what was interesting was they also had stock footage ready, so that they were showing footage of the World Trade Center strikes at the time. So it was almost as though it was scripted, that it was going to start off being this one topic, but then it was going to be steered by David Shayler towards no planes at the World Trade Center. And then it wasn't long after that David Shayler then said he was God. And then he started identifying as a woman, dressing up as a woman. So again, these are all things. I think this was like a stepping towards anybody that had listened to David Shayler, and I know there were a lot of people, particularly in the 9/11 movement in the UK, who were listening to David Shayler. David Shayler had done that. I think he'd done a film, hadn't he, called Mind the Gap as well.
That's the one,
the 7/7 issue as well. So again, this, as far as I was concerned, this seemed to be trying to undermine David Shayler's. He'd done some pretty previous good work, but now it was sort of undermining it, and that's what I think it was. And I think I set that off, and I'm not proud of that, but at the time, like you say, you're naive. I was pretty early on.
Yeah.
I got a guy, Killtown, who was very, very well known in the 9/11 truth movement, and to be thinking that, he's chosen you as a confidant, it was quite an ego boost.
Yeah.
And so I can understand me being drawn in by my naivety, but as from looking back on it, I can actually see the way that I was played and the way that that it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew spoke of that, didn't he, with Stephen E. Jones he felt he was used. He produced a PowerPoint for Stephen E. Jones.
Yeah.
And I think Andrew felt used after what come out about Stephen E. Jones and the cold fusion. When he discredited that and the connection, how he come on the scene with the 9/11 truth movement.
It happens to the best of us. We can all be misled. We can all be deceived.
Yeah.
It's natural. But but the problem you get is when people will refuse to admit that they've been deceived, and they will continue and stick to it in a way that that's almost to a point of religion.
Yes.
And this is what happens when you get people who are who become names, almost celebritized in the alternative media in all different ways. People are drawn to it, and it's only natural. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's only natural, and I'm guilty of it myself. I think that I was used by Killtown. I think I was used in a big way, and I think I was used to trigger David Shayler, who's probably, as far as I think anyway, I think he's probably an MK Ultra victim.
Right. Okay.
Not an operative, just a victim. And I think I was used to trigger him, which is probably why I cannot remember what I was sent to tell him. But I was sent to tell him something.
That is strange, that is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's quite an amazing story, that is. I would, till you've disclosed, I wouldn't have ever known about that. But I've always had lately, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had the suspicions about Killtown. And with you, disclosing that is that's quite a wow factor for me, really, after what I've been looking into with some of these characters and the backgrounds.
Of course, Killtown was linked with Simon Shack, and we mentioned September Clues earlier on, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was Simon Shack, wasn't he? Isn't he Austrian or Swiss or something?
Is he Norwegian? I think.
Norwegian,
I think, or something like that. Yeah, I may be wrong.
Again,
it's hard to remember all these.
The September Clues, the really interesting videos, as long as you take them for what they are, and you can actually see that really they're not making any sense. It's just like it's like a cartoonish type of take on things, isn't it? You get something that the nose out thing was just ridiculous. You know,
yeah. I mean, I was drawn in by that. I must admit, I was drawn in by that, and it's only been. I think you get sort of implanted with information, and it's hard to shake that off because it almost overrides what you're looking at. Sometimes it's quite powerful, but you know, even I'm quite what humility to say, oh, you know, I was conned. You know,
yeah.
I'm open about that. I felt I was conned with that, to be honest. Like, you know, look back at it, and his whole film is just full of some really obnoxious either mistakes or it's deliberate. I don't think you can make the same sort of mistakes, or he's quite deceptive with his editing.
But I would recommend anybody that's listening, if you to go back and look at these September clues. Go back to look at all these different early films, you know, Loose Change, 9/11 in Plain Sight. Go back and look at them all and just see how things have evolved, because they have evolved.
Yeah.
We do evolve eventually. You do see the wheat from the chaff. And, you know, Simon Shack may be coming from somewhere that there wasn't any planes, but the evidence that he's offering isn't
the answer.
No, it's not conclusive enough. It's not even it's not even close to conclusive enough. Listen, we are at the hour mark, so I'm going to play a couple of records.
Fantastic.
We'll have a break and we'll go off and get a drink or have a wee or something like that. You're listening to Raconteurs News. It is Monday the 15th of January. And, we're having a great chat. We're sort of like doing 9/11 Gold, if you will. 9/11 Truth Movement Gold from 2005, 2006, 2004. We'll get into a little bit more after the break. We're going to play a couple of records and we'll see you back here soon.
Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So what do I do? Just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble for me. Is it my voice or my face or the clothes that I wear? 'Cause something's getting me noticed in a bad way. I must say, I ain't looking for no shit, but it finds me. Particularly when I'm out driving. Slow down, you know, it's a runabout, mate, not a racetrack. How the fuck did you pass your test? You're a pest, you got my heart beating in my chest. No wonder I'm so irate. Why don't you fucking indicate? I wish I had a shit gun ferret at your window, bitch. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So what do I do? Just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble for me. So I drive and get my shit done quick. Don't wanna waste too much time on the streets with the pricks. I know they're gonna take my energy. Give me road rage, then I commit a felony. Score some weed, then I drive home readily. Hang my car keys up and calm down steadily. Lays on my mind when I let them get at me. Load of bombs, roller J, get a stone, write a melody. Start getting high, having less of the hunches. Put it on hold while I answer the munches. Get about the dicks while I'm grinding the bunches. Really need to learn just to roll with the punches.
Aquí te estaré esperando, porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos. Andaba por la noche y andaba muy perdido. Me faltaban que tus ojos me mostraran el camino. Camina, porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos.
Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So what do I do? Just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble for me. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. Poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So what do I do? Just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. 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 Every day is trouble for me. I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. Arms enfolded oaking, malnutrition dulls my hair. My eyes are black and lifeless with an unprivileged stare. I'm the beggar on the corner, will no one spare a dime? I'm the child that never learned to read, 'cause no one spared the time. I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. Murderer, the victim, I'm a license to a gun. I'm a sad, bruised old lady in an alley or in a slum. I'm a middle-aged businessman with chronic heart disease. I'm another teenage suicide in a street that has no trees. I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. Starving third world mother, refugee without a home. I'm a housewife hooked on Valium, a pensioner alone. I'm a cancer-ridden specter, discovering the earth. I'm another hungry baby, I'm an accident at birth. I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care. I am a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I am a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there. Statistical reminder of a world that doesn't care.
Two back to back from Heathworth. First on Honky RR, that's Road Rage, Honky Road Rage. And then 1 in 10, great tunes. Absolutely love that 1 in 10. I was gutted when I lost it, when my one of my laptops died, and I've got it back again. Thank the Lord. Love that one. 1 in 10. That's Heath Dweth. It's an old UB40 song. Just giving you a bit of a heads up on tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be joined by a listener, Carl Davis. Carl Davis, he's been on before on Raconteurs 2 with AD a few months ago, but he's going to be joining me tomorrow night. We had a really, really good conversation for about an hour on Friday, so I know that it's just going to go and go and go. He's got pretty much the same ideas as me, but that's Carl Davis. He's got quite a story to tell as well, so he'll be on tomorrow night. That's between 7 and 9 on raconteursnews.com and, of course, on Spreaker.com/raconteursnews. I think that's the right address. If not, just do a search on Spreaker.com and find us on Raconteurs News there. But back to tonight, we are joined by Mark Conlon. Mark, how are you doing? How was your comfort break?
Very good. Had a bottle of water.
A
couple of notes. Yeah, water. I made a couple of notes in between of a couple of people and films that you might remember actually.
Well, go on then. Let's let's get your notes out.
While we're on the 9/11 gold,
yeah.
Look back in history. One of them was Barry Zewicker, the Canadian guy who made The Great Conspiracy.
No, I don't think I've heard that one.
Yeah. Do you remember the book as well by Eric Hufschmid? I think his name is Hufschmid, I think.
Hufschmid, yeah.
Painful Questions or Painful Deceptions.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were quite early on, wasn't they?
Yeah. There were quite a few early on. I mean, there was quite a good one. I seem to remember. I can't remember what it was called, but it was sort of shot in a way of a bloke behind a desk telling the news.
That was it. I think that's him, Barry Zewicker.
Oh, is that the what? Is that the guy you see? Yeah. It's the names that are deceiving me. I know I'm pretty shit hot with names from back then, but no, they were really good. I mean, people really should look back at these.
I do remember his one that he made. I think he covered about the Iraq, the babies being thrown out the was it out the prams?
No, there was the lie, wasn't there? During the first Iraq War,
that was it. Yeah,
there were reports to try to justify going in. They had a Kuwaiti, a girl, a young girl. I think
Kuwaiti ambassador.
She was one of the ambassadors of Kuwait's daughters, and she was telling a story of babies being thrown out of incubators by Iraqi troops in Kuwait, and that's really what turned it and made people go in, made people behind going in, and it pretty much like the weapons of mass destruction and the same sort of crap. It was, but these are all things that people should really look up. Particularly if you're new to this. Because these are things. I think these were important things. These were things that were coming out in a day and age where it wasn't censored in the way that it is now. And like I was saying to Andrew Johnson a couple of weeks ago, back in those days we had forums, and people would see. If they saw a title to a thread, if they wanted to click on that thread, they'd see it. They'd click on it.
Yeah.
And they'd see everything. So anything they wanted to click on, it was their own choice. It was autonomous. So people were able to click on whatever they wanted, but nowadays we're told what we can see, and that's the problem. We've all been herded into social media. So social media now have got these algorithms, these new algorithms where you only see what your friends and family and people that are following you, that's the only thing you'll see. It's nuts. Whereas back in those days, on a forum, everybody who clicked on that thread saw every single comment. and then responded to every single comment. And although sometimes the debate was stifled by trolls who were just trying to cause arguments or what do we call it, shitstorming or whatever. You know, you could see that it was directly there. It wasn't hidden from you. So your argument and what you're saying is not being suppressed by an algorithm so that nobody can see it, but someone's trying to suppress it, and that tells a lot of what your argument is, and I think that's what we're missing these days. Yeah,
well, that couldn't agree more with that, because it's almost like the centralisation of power, isn't it, on the internet? So you're getting smaller and smaller pockets now, which like Google can control, Facebook, and to a lot of people that is the internet now, isn't it? They go to Facebook, whereas in the old days you could go to many places and speak openly without having the censorship. I mean, I had my YouTube channel completely terminated, for nothing, So you are governed these days it's quite strict, and it's getting worse. It's not like the old days, and we end up sounding like our dads, in our day.
And it's not that long ago as well, is it? We're only talking about 10 years, aren't we? We're only talking about 10 years. It took 10 years for them to put us all in the same place. Now, I think that there is room for us to go back to, I think, forums and things like that. I really do. I think it's a much better platform than social media. And I think we should leave social media to the people that want to be social, and want to, the narcissists, the people that want to promote themselves, and leave them to it, because that's all it is. It's become. I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago. There's this guy who's become. I can't remember his name. But he's become he's one of these YouTube stars. So he's got millions of followers, and he's got brands that are working alongside him, that he's endorsing, and he's making millions and millions and millions and millions out of just this social media crap, just nonsense. Really, that's all he does. But he went to. I think it was last month. It must have been in December, but he went to as part of one of his silly. Oh right, we're going to do is that, motherfucker, that sort of thing. Yeah, we're going to do this. Blah, blah, blah. He went to a place in Japan at the foot of Mount Fuji, which is called, which is known as Japan's suicide forest. Now, it's a couple of 100 years ago. Mount Fuji erupted. And all the lava, when the lava was, it all dried off and went everything, this forest grew out of it, and it's called Suki, which means sea of trees, right? Okay, so it's a really thick forest. Now, during after World War II, it became infamous because people who were in poverty would take their elderly relatives and then leave them in there to die because they couldn't afford to feed them anymore.
Right.
And recently it's become a suicide hotspot. There's like over 100 suicides a year. In fact, there was 108, I think, in 2011. And since then, the Japanese government have stopped reporting how many there are. And people, what they do... and it's a really interesting... I watched a couple of documentaries on it, and it's a really interesting place, and it's really spooky.
Right.
And because it's so thick, if you get into it, what people do is they attach ribbons to trees, and then they walk into the forest in case they change their mind and they're not going to commit suicide. So, right, it's really weird. I'd really...
I've not heard of that.
I'd recommend anybody if anybody just Googles Japan's suicide forest. It's at the foot of Mount Fuji. Right. It's called Suki. It's a sea of trees, and there are so many suicides there. I watched a couple of documentaries on it, and it's really weird. But anyway, this stupid dickhead bloke who's got this millions of followers, he decides that he's going to go there and do one of his shows, his zany shows. Yeah, we're going to stuff.
Yeah.
Does all this stuff. And they come across a body hanging.
Really? Wow.
And they come across a body hanging, and he's essentially taking the piss. And he uploaded this to YouTube. And it's basically destroyed him, because this was somebody that was hanging there that had decided to took that decision to take their own life. And he was taking a piss, and it was all like, "Oh my God, I've never seen a bloody corpse before," and all took camera and all that sort of crap, that utter nonsense. But it seems to be what we've got to, and this is what getting us all engulfed in social media has got us to. So I think the guy, I can't remember the guy's name. He's some dickhead anyway, in America, but he's been completely destroyed. But on the upside, that made me aware of this forest and its history and that, and it was really interesting looking back at that and going there's every year there's a number of volunteers go in to clear out bodies, and they find them. You know, sometimes they're not found for 2 or 3 years, but you know it's. There's all ropes hanging down where people have been cut down. It's really eerie. I'd recommend anybody, as long as you're not depressed, and you know. But I'd just recommend anyone, because it is really interesting.
It's quite macabre.
But that's what we get. But we need to get back to the old ways of sharing information, don't we? You know, such as forums, and because Facebook and Twitter, they've just been shut down.
Well, they're just massively controlled, aren't they? Really, I mean. It's just, I mean, you look. They call it soft censorship, but it's actually quite heavy-handed as well. There's no debate. You know, when you get a strike against your channel, you know, especially on YouTube, you just put you in a position that you're fighting a losing battle. And to be honest, when I appealed, I didn't, was I even talking to a human being? It was. Could have been some type of automated robot response, really. So it's. I think it's heading in a quite not a very good place. I mean, I started to use VidMe after that, which was quite a nice little platform actually, VidMe, and I mean that ended up having to close down because it just couldn't compete with Facebook or YouTube.
And that's the problem, isn't it? We're all herded, and of course, these companies, these small companies, don't get the same breaks. They won't get the same tax breaks as YouTube and Google, and all that sort of thing. So they're not going to get any help whatsoever. So really, we've got to do this ourselves, haven't we? We've got to sort of go back. Yeah. We've got to sort of take a step backwards. We're moving forward at a rate of knots, but the more we move forward, the more we're restricted.
It seems to have got quite intensively worse. You know, I know it's been coming. It seems like they're really sprinting towards something of really, containing any debate or anything that doesn't fit any narrative that they think is that you shouldn't talk about or challenge. You just shut out, really, I think, and they can control that, like you say, with the algorithms, and they don't publish these algorithms. So it's just a way of either leading people to, like you say, Facebook. That can be their life, can't it? The internet is Facebook for some people, or YouTube, and they're massively controlled. And they're massively censored, and I think it's quite dangerous when they've turned that into that you can't speak freely because is this hate or is this too graphic? As in, yet they'll leave beheadings on or something on their platform, but you might get a strike on your YouTube channel for something which is, neither of any of that lot. Not even close. It's just when you challenge something, they don't like that. Challenge that narrative, so you get struck, get a strike, and then before you know it, you've had one or two strikes so close together. By the time you get the third one, you can't appeal the others, so you completely shut out your account, which is what happened to me. Within a couple of hours. Really.
It's insane, isn't it? It's insane. It's insane
Yeah.
what we're putting up with. You see, this is why I think we should step back. We need to step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go backwards. What did we do before? Because the more we move forward, the more we become restricted. Like you say, these algorithms, as far as I'm concerned, algorithms should be illegal because they're mind control. They're telling you what you are allowed to see and what you're not allowed to see. They should be, come on. They should be illegal. It should be illegal, but again, we don't live in that sort of society. I mean, look at this Carillion thing that's been going off today. I mean that. Yeah. If you can't see it, I'm going to explain to you what it was. What Carillion was, it mopped up billions and billions and billions of dollars of contracts, government contracts, taxpayers' money, and then it becomes liquidated. And all those billions of pounds have gone into private hands. It's public money being stolen. But yet, we don't see it, do we? We get the old lot. We get the 20,000 jobs are going to be lost. Fine, no problem. Where's all this money gone? All this money. Can we find out where it's gone and we'll get it back because it needs to go back in public purse. No, we can't do that. It's all gone. It's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then we're told privatisation is the way forward for everything. Well, obviously it wasn't in this case. No, and you see privatisation being done, essentially under the radar, and you don't really realise it's going on. I mean, I see it more now, like it stands out. It's pretty obnoxious now, but even in local areas, things that were just left to crumble and die, buildings that were just left, by the council, they suddenly become into private hands. They, after the buildings have become dilapidated, they just sell it into private hands, and then slowly everything's becoming privatised. Which is, there's, I suppose they say there's positives for that, but there's also negatives, and they probably don't even give you a fair go with the negatives and the consequences of it. And we're not talking so much now, it's down the line, isn't it? Which is what we see when we think back, when in our day, so to speak, sounding like my dad again. You see, I'm seeing now the consequences of what happened a good few years ago. Prices are going up and up and up. You was told the opposite. You said you get competition back in the day, so push prices down, but that's just not what you see, is it? Play out in the now. So what's it going to be like as time goes on? What's going to happen in the future? As things become more increasingly privatised. Yeah,
where's the line in the sand?
Probably going to be a reverse on that. I do feel that there's not just in this country. In fact, probably less in this country than anywhere else. But I think that there is going to be a sort of reverse on that. I do feel that people are more inclined for nationally owned things rather than privately owned companies, because they can see what's going on, they can see what's happening. You can always take it for so long. How long are they? We started privatising things in the 80s, didn't we? Thatcher started privatising things in the 80s. And look what's happened. It's decimated industries. It's decimated mining, steelworks, and any industry that we had that were proud traditions. And living here in Sheffield, we're in the heart of a coal area, and also the steelworks as well. We were proud, we had a proud steel industry, and it's all just been eroded away, decimated away, and this is all in the name of progress. I mean, how can it be progress when you've got men sitting idle who have got skills that could be, producing things, and we don't need to necessarily produce them for export, but we will naturally do that if we produce them to such a high quality that we're able to, we're secure in using them in our own industries and in our own infrastructure, railways and things like that. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems to me like it was a quick buck that was required by a certain number of people that thought, well, I've got some money, I'll be able to invest in this and make do BT, all that, all the infrastructure. It's all just gone, and now most of it's in foreign hands anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, you ever tried to get through to any of these companies? It takes you a long time if you ring up. It's not, you can't really speak to anybody. You have to go through a real rigmarole just to, if you want to ring up.
But it's more convenient these days because the technology's made it more convenient. So you can't say that.
Yeah.
The technology, the investment from private people into these, it has made it so much easier. So you can't say that. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Well,
making things
just
worse.
On the point Natural was talking about the other day. Yeah, that you'd think it would be easier, but it's not. It's more. There's more issues. There's more. It seems harder sometimes to get something done, or
more hurdles to jump.
Yet the technology's there, they say, to make it easier, but it seems harder. And
everything is harder. Everything is harder. You give me an example. Come on, woman. Give me an example. All right. You want to cancel your Sky?
Oh, I want to tell them that they've got wrong address.
You want to cancel your Sky? You ring them up, and then we can't do it. Then they put you on to somebody else who's like, they're almost like negotiators for police. When they bring in negotiators when they've got an hostage situation. Yeah. You want to leave Sky? Okay, just a second. Right, let's calm down. Right, what? Right, how are you feeling? What's made you feel like this? And they go into this like negotiation sort of thing, and it's just ridiculous. I just want to cancel my Sky, mate. Please, can I just cancel it? Turn it off.
Yeah.
God. But everything's more and more difficult.
Yeah. But you mentioned an example there. I had this similar situation with a mobile phone company, and you try and get something back that they've took from you. You're looking nearly 6 to 9 months to sort a simple thing out, really, where they're in the wrong, but you try and sort it out, it can be quite troublesome. It can be quite stressful, actually, when you're getting letters through your door and you're thinking, hang on, this should have been sorted. And it's like, 6 or 7 months on and it's still the same thing. And you've spoke to like numerous people and they can't get a message sent from one thing to the other, or the computer's not updated. It's ridiculous, really.
Yeah, and you're talking to somebody who's halfway across planet that doesn't understand half the things you're saying, because you've got everyone has colloquial phrases and things that they say that people can't understand, and well, we know why it's done. There's a bigger agenda, obviously, isn't there, which we sort of know about to some degree, and you can see it playing out. Well,
everywhere you seem to look, it's playing out somewhere.
Well, yeah, everywhere. Well, we've gone 9/11. We've done call centres and Sky and all that sort of thing. And this last half hour, I wanted to pin you down because we did have a bit of a chat, and you've got a bit of an interest in UFOs.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into that for the last half hour because we've gone over 9/11. We've done all sorts of other things. So I just wanted to. Just sort of pin you down on what your experiences are or have been, and or why you've got this interest.
As I said to you, I'm not an expert on or anything like that, and it is an interest. I think what really got me back in, an interest was I had a sighting over in Withall. I think it was around about 2010. When I was just come out of a pub, and I know what people are thinking, you've had a drink and whatnot, but I was driving, so I wasn't drinking, so I don't drink and drive. And we seen the other person, we seen this really bright white light, and it was moving at getting quite a shift on across the sky. And I thought it was going in the direction, actually, of either Bromsgrove or Redditch way, from my best guess. Anyway, I tried to sort of track it in the car when I was going along the country lanes, and it wasn't close, so I could, really identify it. It was just like a really bright white, seemed fairly big orb at a distance, and it was moving really rapid, and I thought nothing of it because we lost sighting of it going through the country lanes, and I thought nothing more of that, really. And I think it was about a couple of months later, the actual person who I worked next to, actually, he was about to tell me what he saw, and he lives over in Bromsgrove. And it was almost like that moment, it was the same night as we both saw this object. And we both worked next to each other. And he said, I've got something to tell you. The other Thursday. And I said, you didn't see it like a UFO or bright light, did you? And he actually, we had the realisation that we both sort of seen the same thing. But I seen it from Withall heading over in his direction to Bromsgrove. Which was quite bizarre, really, because it was like, you must have been a couple of weeks or a month on when he actually brought it up. I was almost like I knew what he was going to say when he said, the other Thursday night I seen, I filled in the gaps because it took me back to, I was out on a Thursday. So I knew he had an interest in UFOs as well. So, yeah, it's like a real coincidence. It flew over his actual house.
So what did it look like?
It was like the brightest of whitest, it's probably as bright as this paper, like white like that. And it was round. I think he would have got a better look at it. He actually he filled in a case report for the Birmingham UFO group. I think it's still on there, actually. Would have been around the 26th of June or 24th of June 2010. So he's got case studies on their website of what he's seen. So, but it was travelling at speed, which is what he confirmed. And I was over in Withall, which is quite far away compared. Withall is from Bromsgrove, but yeah.
So
I don't know what it was.
That must give you some sort of justification for what you saw when somebody else has seen the same thing or a similar thing anyway, at the same time.
Definitely, yeah. And that, I've always had an interest in it, but I started up going to the Birmingham UFO group. I used to go to the odd talk or two there. I think I mentioned didn't I seen Simon Parks do his talk at the Birmingham UFO group in 2013, that was. And that was quite an interesting talk, his story. So
Right. I'm not really very up on the UFO people, so I've heard the name Simon Parkes before, but I don't know who he is. But I will tell you that next week on the 22nd on Monday, well, 1 week from today, we're going to have Larry Warren on. Larry Warren's going to be on here on Raconteurs News. Myself, I'm really hoping Andy's going to be joining me as well, because he's really the one with all the knowledge, and I'll sort of just be sat here just trying to make things up, a bit like I am now, really. Yeah, but we've got Larry Warren on. That is next Monday, the 22nd of January. So have you had any other experiences or any other encounters?
Not myself. I do know people who have, and they haven't had. You know, they've suspected. They've had. What would you call it when it brings things back to you? You know, it can be like a trigger event. It can bring like an experience back. You know, I know people who've had that, and that's been quite interesting. But myself, I don't feel I've had any, you know, talking of abductions or anything like that. I've just mainly had an interest in that, you know, field, but I'm not an expert on it really. I just know of some of the other cases. I think if you go back, do you remember the alien autopsy?
Yeah.
When that come out? I mean, I remember buying the video of that when that come out with the Ray Santilli, was it? When they released it on VHS. I thought that was quite interesting. One interesting story. I mean, they made a film about that, didn't they, with Anton Deck?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A dead serious film. Dead serious film with Anton Deck.
Yeah. It's quite bizarre, isn't it, that, really, when you think about it?
Well,
I was just saying I picked a book up, actually, in a charity shop, funny enough, which covers quite a few cases.
You'll have to explain to people. You've just shown me that, but people can't see that, so just explain to
people.
Yeah,
is that not clear?
I can see it. Yeah, I can see that, but people who are listening can't.
Right, okay. This book's called Aliens, Encounters with the Unexplained by Marcus Day. And this, actually, it's quite a good book, actually. It covers quite a lot of cases in it, which is really what I was looking for, because a lot of books generally deal with, you know, one or two cases or a case or, you know, certain events. This covers quite a lot of events in this, and I thought, well, that's quite a good book to have a look through, actually. And I've got another book of a lady who I actually met at, again, it was at Birmingham UFO groups meet up. Going back a couple of years, was Susie Hansen, and she actually wrote the book called The Dual Soul Connection, The Alien Agenda for Human Advancement. That's I haven't actually got around to reading this book, but my partner read that, and she really enjoyed that book. You know, it's quite a good book, apparently. It's getting the time to sit down and read a lot of these things, because they, you know, you're kept busy, aren't you, trying to survive life, so to speak.
Yeah. There's always
so.
That,
yeah. So I met her, and she did quite an interesting talk. That was quite a good talk that he did. A case I am interested in, which was local to me back in 1995, which got my interest. And I found out about this case. It was through the interview with John Hanson on The Unexplained. I think it was around about 2010 or something like that. And that was about a UFO sighting involving the police in Birmingham, actually in Sturchley in Birmingham, on a road called Dogpool Lane. And it was actually reported, firstly, the light, by a doctor in Russell Road in Moseley. this doctor, and I think they dispatched the police, because they was close by at the police training centre, I think, in Birmingham, which is not far from Moseley. And they went round and had a chat with this doctor about what he saw. And apparently they tracked this light to Dogpool Lane, which is not about a mile or two away from the police training centre in Moseley, to this Dogpool Lane. And the actual policewoman and the policeman, they were stood there in shock at what they'd seen. And it was this glowing object, and it was quite radiant and about the size of a double-decker bus in the air above the trees. And he actually shrunk into itself.
Sorry, did you say Dogpool Lane?
Well, no, Dogpool. Pool as in P-O-O-L.
Oh, right,
Dogpool Lane, yeah.
Right, sorry.
But the kids do enjoy cancelling out that L on the road sign.
I bet they
back
do.
in the day.
I'd do it myself if I were there.
Yeah, well, they did do that, actually. So the interesting thing about this case was in 95, it was actually, I think John Hanson got the police, or, like the official report they have that goes through, that's sort of like, not faxed through, I think it used to go through on a machine. And he was able to get hold of that. But coming from a police, the testimony from a police lady who was pretty shook up from what she seen, and the policeman, which I think happened to be his son, actually, John Hanson's son.
Right.
It shook him up. Tested there what they had actually seen happen, where this thing shrunk into itself and disappeared. And the fascinating case for this is, I think it was in 2010, because this happened in 1995, this case, in the January, I think it was, January 19th, 1995. In 2010, there was another sighting of a very, very similar UFO in that location. Because there's buildings there now, in that vicinity, and there's people who work there, and they was on a break. And I was actually outside in the day and actually seen this UFO. And again, it disappeared into itself.
Mm-hmm.
In the same vicinity, same location, in that area of ground.
Would you say that there's enough evidence now of UFOs or, anomalies in the sky when we don't know what they are, to say that there's definitely something going on?
That's difficult. I did buy a night vision camera, and I was, studying, the footage a little bit. And you do see a lot more things in there that you don't see with a traditional camera when it's, with a night vision camera. And there's some fascinating things that I caught. I think Richard Lenny, have you ever heard of that guy who does the night vision stuff?
No, but I did see some of the footage that Gary Heseltine had got with his night vision camera at the
Right.
UFO Truth Conference last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there's some pretty impressive things where, capturing, my friend actually, he caught, an ex-work colleague, it's on his YouTube channel, he caught a fleet of something, and they were moving around. I think it might have been a fleet of 4 or 6 looking crafts on his. And it's absolutely stunning, really, piece of footage. And the added thing is, he's my friend, and he's my ex-work colleague, and I would trust him 110% of what he's captured. He wouldn't fabricate something. He's not that type of person. But absolutely stunning footage he caught of a fleet of something going through the air with his night vision.
Andy's just put a question in the chat room. He said, "Is that the the John Hanson who wrote the Haunted Skies books, Mark?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was his son who actually had that encounter, I think that's what triggered John to get into that, because he wouldn't have believed anything to do with that, according to what, in the interview that I heard with him. I think Richard D. Hall interviewed him as well. That's how I found out the location that it was on Dogpool Lane, because he does mention that in the interview. And that's quite a fascinating case. Yeah, so that captured me, 'cause that wasn't very far from where I was living, you see, where I grew up, down in, by Sturchley. So that, and I had no idea at that time that had happened. So I don't think it made the press. Certainly I never got to hear about that in 1995. So that would have been, if I had done, I'm surely I'd have known about that, because it's involving the police, you see. And plus the actual police training centre, my mum used to work down there for the police, you see, so I was quite familiar with the police training centre, you see, although she's not a policewoman. But I used to go in there because we were allowed in there because my mum was a member. So that whole thing fascinated me to do with that case, really. And one day I'd like to, look into that a bit more, or even chat to John about it. I just haven't had the time to maybe knock his door and have a chat about it, really. Although I did Facebook him once and ask him which area of Dogpool Lane it was on, whether it was down the bottom end or the top end, and he sort of confirmed the top end, which is where this other sighting happened, Dogpool Lane. Yeah.
I've got a couple of remarks in the chat room. Andy's put, he's heard it said, if you don't think UFOs are real, you just need to use night vision and it's clear. And someone else has put as well, the new X-Files kind of summed up how I feel about UFOs, that it's all government testing, advanced technology that account for all the sightings. However, I do think there is alien life elsewhere in the stars. So Anon there thinks that most of the things that people see are the government testing things. I don't agree with that. In fact, I know that's bollocks. But however, he does think that there's alien life elsewhere in the stars. So,
Well, there's the implants as well, isn't there? There's some strange implants. I think Richard D. Hall interviewed a couple of people to do with that. I think John Hanson had something removed from somebody, like a little implant. I don't know where that went with the testing on that, but you can't really rule out that there isn't anything out there, can you? Really, I don't think.
Well, why would you want to? What a boring
no,
world
exactly,
that'd
yeah.
be if you fucking just thought, well, you just went, actually, there's only us. What a boring world you're going to live in. You're going to go like, my God, there's nothing that could happen that's going to surprise me, because I fucking know everything. I know that there's no up there. I know that there's no fucking down here. I know there's no. I know everything. So what a boring fucking world I live in, and that's the fucking problem with people, innit? They think they know everything, and they don't. They know fuck all. And if they only opened up the perceptions to what could be, rather than fucking dismissing anything that they don't know, they don't understand at the moment, then we'd live in such a fucking better world where we're trying to fucking help each other and do things. But, instead it's all me, fucking me.
Well, yeah, I think for some people, I think there's a lot of pressure not to disclose, experiences, because I think some people worry about, how they might be judged or, be perceived. I think, a lot of people, or maybe the profession they're in, can't really talk about that because, I think there's a lot pressure for some people not to talk about their experiences, and I can get that a little bit, but I think I'm of the opinion there's a lot more out there than what we've ever been told. And from what I seen in the sky, to me that didn't come across as something human. It was very much, it caught my eye, and it was moving at a speed that a plane's doesn't, and it was moving really fast. So it made me question from that.
People will say to you, you saw this, or you saw that, or you saw fucking other, you didn't see fuck all. There's only you that knows what you saw. There's only you can try and convey that information to other people. If those other people aren't receptive to it, fuck them. You know know what you saw. That's all you can do. You can just try and convey what you saw to other people. And if they don't want to know about it, they don't. If they don't want to know about it, they won't. And there's no you can fucking do about it. They might as well.
I mean, I don't generally really ever talk about that, to be honest, because to me, how can I put this? It's I know what I saw, and I don't really need to justify it to anybody else, really. So I'm quite happy with what I seen, so to speak. And it's made me question, was it something out of this world? Could have been, but I'm not out to try and push that on to anybody, because I'm happy with what I've seen. If you get what I mean, I don't need to prove anything, So if anybody said, "Oh, it's something else," like you say, at the end of the day, I know what I've seen, And plus, I got that other corroborating witness who happens to be a work colleague, coincidentally. So it's sort of, like you say, it confirmed a lot for me.
I compare it to when I went down to I went on the Weakest Link
right.
a number of years ago, and I got off a train in London, and I bumped into Rick Mayall.
Oh right,
I was a huge Rick Mayall fan, and I said, "Oh my god, I'm such a huge fan."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, do you want my autograph or a picture or something?" And I said, No. I said, "Just meeting you, that's enough. I don't need to be able to prove it to anybody else. That's enough for me."
Yeah.
And he went, and he turned to me and he went, "You are awesome." And that was it. That's the last I saw of him. But that's something that it don't fucking. I don't need to be able to tell people and show people, and it was just something that were personal to me, and which I think that's what's got what people have got wrong with him, is they fucking idolise the wrong people, and then they think they see such superficial things as being absolutely fucking totally important when they're not. I didn't need a photo with him. I didn't need his autograph. I'd met him. That's what I wanted to do.
It seemed like you was more interested in having that human experience as well. Because, I mean, when you ask for an autograph, you're taking that away to some degree, aren't you? Because you're taking their attention away from you having that interaction.
Exactly.
If you get what I mean.
I didn't listen.
He was quite happy just to have a meeting. Yeah.
I didn't need it. I don't need to prove to anybody. If anyone thinks I'm talking shit, and think it, I don't care. For me, that's all. For me, that's what it was. It was something personal and something that I wanted to keep to myself. But it just seems that less and less things are personal, and that people are sharing more and more things. Oh, the fucking dinners. What are you sharing your fucking dinner for? Oh my god, how many dinners have I seen on fucking Facebook? I sometimes feel like taking a picture of the shit I've had and say, "Here's yesterday's dinner."
Cut out the middleman. Yeah, it is interesting how human behaviour has changed like that. It is very interesting. I was having a conversation the other day about, if you go to a bus stop, nobody's really talking to each other anymore. They've all got their heads down and they're really engaged in their phones. It seems like people are not connecting human to human like they may have done in the past. And again, sounding like my dad, but it only seems like a short time away that this has been, changed. Doesn't seem Like it's not that long ago when the phones wasn't so important. It seems like a really quick, accelerated change.
Yeah.
Especially what everything you get on your phone now. It's all, I mean, before it used to be probably just texting and the phone, wasn't it? Or just a phone. And it seems like it's really changed society's behaviour, where they're not interacting on a human level.
It's like if I go somewhere and I'm in a shop or I'm doing something or whatever, and there's a kid, a child, a toddler, and I'm talking before they've been fucking. I like to look at them and pull faces at them and, make them laugh and do that sort of thing. Yeah. And, and people think you're fucking weird for doing it, and all you're doing is you're just interacting with another human being, They're being pushed along in the little trolley with a kid, with a mum, and, you're walking past, they look at you and you go, and you pull a face at them, and then, I like to do that. And but
I think you probably remember back when that was part of being a human being, was interacting on human level, wasn't it? And having that connection, with fellow humans, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think that has really had a wedge put in the middle now of it. And I think, even holding a door open, sometimes you don't even get a response from people because they're that preoccupied with other things. It's like they're missing, they're not in the here and now. It's like I think somebody said when they go to a concert, what's the first thing you see? They're holding the phones up like that.
Yeah. Nobody's watching it. They're watching it on a screen, aren't they?
They're not in the moment, are they? No. They're not having that connection, in that moment. It's through the phone again, isn't it? The phone's distracting. And I think you do see a lot of that, especially, if you go, like say, bus stops, train stations, people are not engaging like they used to on a level anymore.
No.
Which we could look at that and say, well, that's exactly what's meant to be happening, isn't it? For other agenda that's coming.
I'm trying to do it more and more. I do try to engage with people. I do try to, perhaps if there's an old lady we're in supermarket and she does something and I'll try and say something funny just to try and have that little bit of that human contact, because I think that's important and I think we're losing it. I think we're losing it, and I think it's the most important thing that we've got.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the city centre at Christmas, and a woman stopped me to find the way to the train station, and it was actually nice to be somebody to come up to you and talk to you. Actually, so we walked up and showed her where to go to the station. We had a interaction, and she was quite happy that somebody actually took the time to show her, where to go, really. And that's a nice human interaction that even just smiling at somebody,
Yeah,
but I think, sometimes people, they're maybe not on that level. They're probably slightly suspicious of you if you smile at them.
Well, we can only keep on trying, can't we? I mean, God loves a trier, and God should love us because we're trying. Mark, it's come to the end of the show. 2 hours. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much for coming along on Raconteurs News. I'm sure you'll be back on again in the very near future.
Can I shamelessly plug a book?
Yes, of course you can. Where did the Towers go?
Two important books. Where did the Towers go?
Yep. Dr. Judy Wood, she's been on Raconteurs News.
Dr. Judy Wood, yeah. And you got Andrew's book, 9/11 Finding the Truth.
9/11 Finding the Truth, is that Andrew Johnson's book, yeah.
Yeah, you can get them on PDF free or Lulu. And also 9/11 Holding the Truth, which is his latest one. He's got some of my research in there as well, so...
Brilliant. So
I'm thankful to Andrew for that.
9/11 Holding the Truth. That's by Andrew Johnson. It's got some of Mark's research in there. So yes, I think we've plugged them. So thanks very much for coming along.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great talking to you.
It's been absolutely superb. Thank you very much to everybody for listening. Tomorrow night I've got Carl Davis Carl Davis is going to be coming on 7 till 9 on Raconteurs News, and then on the 22nd of January, that's a week today, we've got Larry Warren coming on. Larry Warren, that's going to be an interesting one, and he's going to be doing the lion's share of the interview on that one. I think it's about time he did a little bit of work. He's had a lot of time off in recent weeks. But we'll see you tomorrow night, 7 till 9, with Carl Davis. Take it easy. Ta-ra a bit. Bye.
Get the wiggies cause I'm off to the hole in the road. I'm walking off school and I'm off to the city, watching telly all night and I'm not looking pretty. See, I got this job downtown, selling knocked off ladies watches for £1. For a really dodgy man that I met in a dodgy cafe. You know, he said to me, the girl who sold these yesterday wasn't selling very carefully. Police came along and took her and all my watches away. So if you see some coppers, you grab my stuff and leg it, boy, right away. I'll be in the cafe. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. So we spent a few hours and I haven't sold enough for my bus fare home. Street selling's pretty tough, so I turn on the charm for the lunchtime rush with a smile and a wiggle on my schoolboy touch. So the charm is working in the underground. There's a crowd of men and women gather round, and the watches they are going, the money is a flowing. Think I'll take a little extra, stick it in my pocket, spend you later. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I haven't sold a watch for an hour and I'm dying for a slash. I've had enough of this, so I'm off for a piss. Then a quick walk back round to the cafe. Sitting at his table drinking tea, looks at me suspiciously. Then with a glance at the watch he says, how did you do? He paid me a couple of quid, then he said, would you like to come and work another day? I said I'd come back down on Friday, and to that he said okay. So with £2 in my pocket and another 5 in my shoe, I nipped down to Castle Market where a man who looks like Leo Sayer is selling pots with cockles and prawns. This make me feel like dancing. Then off back to dinner on the Wiggies and then home. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield.